Founded in 1999 by Jason Burks, Retrospec Films is Oklahoma's largest turnkey production company of its kind. With over 2 decades of experience, a full-time team of over 20 talented individuals, a 12,000 square foot studio to create in, and thousands of successfully completed projects in both entertainment and advertising. You're in the right place if you like hearing some good old filmmaking stories. On this podcast, we will discuss the pursuit of creating things and the problems we solve by digging up projects from across the last 20 years and giving you a glimpse behind the scenes where the magic happens. You're listening to Retrospec Films from the Archives.
Thanks for joining us today on Retrospec from the Archives. I'm Jason Burks. We are here at Retrospec Studios. I've got Brandon Forbes here, producer here at Retrospec, as well as Jacob Hightower, cinematographer, director, actor. I won't call you the closet extraordinaire of film equipment.
You can call me whatever you want.
All right. We'll just, sometimes when people ask me what I do, I'm like, I either own the company or I'm the custodian.
That's pretty much, I mean, they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand.
It's a wide range. So today we are going to talk a little bit about some of the problems that we have solved for our clients with super, ultra slow motion. You know, slow motion as cameras have evolved over the last, 10 years, 7 years, has become much more widely spread. It's not uncommon for cameras to have 60 frames a second and 120 frames a second. And heck, I mean, the iPhone, doesn't it do?
I think it does 240. It's at 720, but I mean, it'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, geez, so much for our career. But the slow motion we're talking about is a slow motion that is, 500, 800, 1,200 frames per second. So if you're trying to, fathom what that is in your brain, or even understand frame rates, just imagine that a second doesn't change. We know how long a second is. We're not changing that. But how many pictures are we taking inside of that 1 second? So if you take 1,000 frames a second, it's exactly as it sounds. 1,000 pictures are shot in that singular second. And based on how you spread those out, that allows you to really see detail across something in a super slow-mo fashion. So there's 2 projects that really stand out. We kind of resurrected these 2 from the archives, and one of them is a really unique, cool one that we did for a local barbecue restaurant called Oklahoma Joe's BBQ. Some of you might know the grills that they sell at Lowe's. Those were started by the people right here in Tulsa that founded Oklahoma Joe's. And I think that even getting into this conversation, there's probably needs to be a bullet point of, why would we have even endeavored into slow motion in the first place? Before I get on a big, long tangent, would either of you two have anything to contribute at this point in the story?
I mean, this is something you're probably going to talk on, but these cameras aren't like readily available. Like you can't just hop on over to Best Buy and buy yourself a slow-mo camera. So acquiring these, one, is a financial endeavor and, expense that is most companies won't see as a fruitful endeavor. And 2, they're not easy to operate or use because of, as things I'm sure that you're going to talk about. But I think, at the time, I want to say we were maybe the only or one of 2 Phantom owners in Oklahoma, and just having that ability to even like when a client comes to us with a need and being able to think that we've got this whole toolkit and then we have this extra thing that we are like, it looks cool. Not a lot of people use it. It's kind of, newer at the time. Like that was just something that was really special. Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, they were originally built for scientific research, right? And seeing things in such a slower format. So the first time I ever saw one was on Mythbusters, right? They have one. And when I found out that we had one, I'm like, ooh, I get to see bullets fly out of guns, and I get to see, water just kind of drip off of its, bounce off of the top of the surface of the water. And I saw those things that you can't see with your naked eye. you can shoot it with these cameras and it's right there in front of you. And there is something like, it's a different world right there. So, just the science behind those cameras are just phenomenal.
I think the parent company is literally, it may be something different now, but I think it's called Vision Research.
It is, yeah.
So, I mean, it
still is, yeah.
So there's still probably, the majority of those cameras are probably for scientific research, but you have your Jason Burks that go, I want to shoot with them.
Yeah. Well, I will say that, for me, having been a director of photography or cinematographer for, a long time now, 20 plus years, I'm always interested in the next thing. Like, what's the thing I haven't done yet? And I'm trying to even remember the first time that I had a part of a Phantom camera. It was probably 12 years ago. And I think it was called the Gold. And I remember you would rent it, and it came with a human, and it came with a computer, and a lot of stuff. And I remember it was like $9,000 a day to have this thing show up. And I just remember thinking, I want to buy one of these someday. And so there came a time where they put out a smaller one called a Miro. And it was $125,000, and I talked myself into that somehow. And I didn't pay for it in cash. I had a loan out for it. But it really opened some doors. And I think for me, beyond just like the creative, magical aspects of capturing things in a beautiful fashion, it gave me the opportunity to develop my skill set of what is it like to light 1,000 frames a second.
Right.
And that's a whole nother thing. And that's really probably the greatest complication of super slow-mo is that you lose tremendous amounts of light when you're shooting at these frame rates. And so where you might use a LED that's comparable to a 300 watt tungsten Fresnel today to light something, the equivalent of that with a shooting at 1,300 frames a second might be a 5K.
Right.
And a lot of the, nothing against younger, newer filmmakers, but a lot of people in that space, they don't even know what a 5K is. A lot of the electronic fixtures, HMIs and LEDs, they flicker when you shoot things at super, super high speed. So having the knowledge and ability to use tungsten fixtures that are incredibly bright is required, or you can't capture anything. So anyways, getting into the projects, this Oklahoma Joe's project, this was definitely one of those times where, as normal, clients approach us and say, we want to create something cool.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What is that?
Let's do it.
Let's figure it out.
And this is every day for us. I kind of joke around here because it's like, your next question's like, okay, what else you got? And so often, it's weekly for me that I'm sitting in meetings with someone that's like, we don't know what we want, but we want it to be awesome.
Yeah.
And I've also realized that no one on the staff here really appreciates me when that's what I bring to them as well. Like when I go to the graphics team and I'm like, I want the graphics to look awesome. I'll be back tomorrow. It just doesn't.
Please, just make it good.
It doesn't motivate. But for survival, for the survival of this company, when people look at me and say we want it to be cool, I'm like, absolutely, I've got something for you. And I think that owning the Phantom brought that into, hey, what else can we do? So this Oklahoma Joe's thing came up. It was short little promos, like little 15-second spots. How can we do something that's like epic and crazy? I don't remember all the filters and humans it went through. I just know that we derived upon people eating sandwiches while it was raining on them in super slow motion.
Yep.
Which definitely makes no sense at all. I know if you're just listening, this won't help you, but Jessica, would you fire one of those off? It's those bottom 5.
You see it. It sees you. You've been waiting for this moment all week. It's raining for dramatic effect. It's the best barbecue in Oklahoma. The Hog Heaven Sandwich from Oklahoma Joe's. For the love of great barbecue. You see it. It sees you. You've been waiting for this moment all week. It's raining for dramatic effect. It's the best barbecue in Oklahoma. The country style rib tips from Oklahoma Joe's. For the love of great barbecue. You see it. It sees you. You've been waiting for this moment all week. It's raining for dramatic effect. It's the best barbecue in Oklahoma. The chicken lickin' leg from Oklahoma Joe's. For the love of great barbecue.
Hightower, why don't you expand just a little, because you were on that shoot.
Oh yeah.
And it was actually occurring right where we are right now.
Indeed.
Right here in the studio.
It was.
Talk a little bit about some of the unique issues that Phantom brings its own deals, right?
Oh,
but
yeah.
then it was raining, and there's a reason we wanted it to rain, because it makes the slow-mo show up. But,
right.
But why don't you talk a little bit?
So yeah. We talk about how much light you have to bring in for these cameras, right? And so all that light requires power, right? So we had so many cords, so much power running to all these lights, and we had, I think, 6 different like full-on setups that I was a big part on building and getting like kind of set up. Like we had fences in the back. We had to make it look like it was somewhere it wasn't, and it was just here in our studio. I remember thinking, whoa, what's up with all this water and electricity everywhere? Like I'm like looking around, I'm like, are we gonna die? And Jason I'm seeing water hitting a light, and he's like, oh, it's good. It will evaporate before it actually gets to the circuit board now, or whatever, the heart of the light. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds legit. I'll just go with that. And he said, but don't turn it off. Like you don't want to like turn it off while it's wet, or turn it on while it's wet.
Yeah.
So, I found, I learned some interesting things on that shoot. And it was just a big effort on getting all the talent through and building all the sets. And then, we flooded the studio. Like we built this big, kiddie pool type thing with 2x4s and put a tarp down and legit just ran our water hose and we had this rig up and we were shooting it up and it was sprinkling down, and we were shooting it through like a silk or something that we like were letting it trickle down, look like rain. And it worked so well. Like watching those shots back, I'm like, we're not in the studio. We're in in this guy's front yard. We're in the backyard. We're at the side of the house, like he's at the grill. It's just, and that was one of my first big shoots here at Retrospec. I was pretty green. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of learning, and just kind of like, I'm like, wow, what kind of scale are we doing things on, guys? And, it just kind of created the momentum for me to kind of, see where I was going to go in the future, sticking with this team. And just like, I knew if we're doing something this big on one of my first shoots that, I like where I'm at.
For a brisket sandwich. Well, Forbes, from a producing perspective, give me some of your feelings, because I know that you've been dealing with this ever since you've worked here, but not only do you bring all the players to the table, you got to get the actors and the props and all that stuff, but you're also trying to manage safety, and then you're working with somebody who doesn't really see safety as a first thought in their head. It's a problem I have.
This one, I kind of like how Tyler mentioned earlier. It's like, to use these cameras, it's lights upon lights upon lights, and then we're throwing water. But luckily for this, I don't even think we had a single LED, and those tungsten lights, which I didn't know until I had worked here. You can, if it's on and it's outside and it starts pouring rain, it's okay. Mm-hmm. It is okay. Obviously, don't go unplugging or pulling on stuff, but it's not it's fine. And so that, was a relief, and everything's on breakers and stuff. But then just managing the talent and making sure that okay, so you have to go in, and then when it starts raining, you've got 3 seconds before you're completely sopping wet. And then if we don't get it, you got to go back in hair and makeup, and you got a 10-minute reset. And the thing is obviously when you're shooting that many frames a second, any weird thing you do with your eye, your hands, your mouth, you bite it weird, mm-hmm. it doesn't work. And right. So it was, and luckily we had some great, that old guy was just, I forget his name, but my gosh, can
I just bring up,
yeah.
do you guys remember that he accidentally went to Broken Bow? instead of Broken
yes.
Arrow.
Him?
That was the
the
guy.
one.
Oh my gosh.
Which, for reference, Broken Bow is like 4 hours from here. So that was kind of a
We're
like,
Broken
about
Arrow.
that.
yeah.
And we also had that when we were shooting in Broken Bow, and they went to Broken Arrow,
Yeah.
and we were like, we're not there.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
So, I just had to
names.
bring that up.
No. And so, yeah, that was, but I remember like all of those people, like the kid, he was great, but even then, like I remember with him, it was really hard because the water was getting in his eyes. And so he's like squinting kind of like in some of the takes. And so working with the talent and then trying to make sure that like the moment that you're done rolling, it's get him out, get him reset. You know,
Yeah.
I think we had multiple different outfits and different varieties of what they were wearing to try and like expedite whatever we could, so that way we could get as many takes as possible. Because I mean, it was 6 setups in one day, and so I mean, and it was a long day, but I mean, looking at the spots now, you're like, yeah, that
Oh, yeah.
those turned out
Proud of those.
pretty hysterical.
Yeah.
I one of the things I think that's interesting to point out about shooting in super slow-mo is that you hit record and you record like 3 seconds maximum. Like that's all you're shooting, and you're turning 3 seconds into like a minute. And so if you're doing a 15-second commercial, like when I watch these, like the amount of actual real time that's occurring that made it to the edit is like 1/8 of a second. And so when I'm directing or shooting or trying to have camera movement, et cetera, you're trying to get people to do something super fast so that it then translates into this whatever in hyper slow-mo. I agree with you though completely. Forms those they definitely paid off in the end. They were just, and I haven't watched them for a long time, so it's funny watching them.
So over the top.
Because so ridiculous. And obviously with the voiceover, it's like, and it's raining for dramatic effect. so the other project that was in the same space of solving problems in super slow-mo was for a really cool building down in Dallas called the One Arts building. It's in downtown, and there's a lot of cool different people that rent space out there. There's a post-production company. There's a lot of creative minded humans office out of that building. There's also some apartments in it, and they wanted to do something artistic in the lobby that was different than what you normally see, like just hanging artwork. And so the idea was with these screens, they put up this screen and we were going to film a tremendous amount of ultra super slow-mo footage that really was just like motion art. It was just abstract art. And the ask was more or less, how can you guys do stuff that it's okay if we can tell what it is, but we're also okay with it just being almost like animation, almost just like these unusual macro reflective, liquid, odd objects that just make the brain kind of wonder. And I think that's one of the things about super slow-mo, because you can't see things in super slow-mo. When you film it that way, your mind does go, whoa, what is that? Because you can't see things that way. The only way to ever, bring that into your mind or your imagination is with these cameras. So we had an entire plethora of stuff. Why don't you guys fire off some of the things that you remember?
I believe I was the art director on that, and you came to me and was like, "Hey, we need all this stuff to like blow up and look cool." I was like,
Light on
"Yes,
fire.
I'm the right person for the job." So I remember we all kind of like brainstormed, came up with a bunch of ideas on different things, different props, different food coloring, dyes. We got bouncy balls. Yeah, I think you ordered a bunch of stuff on Amazon, and I went to Hobby Lobby. It was just like, I'm like walking around, I'm like, would that look cool blowing up, or would that look cool like dropping out of something? And that was just kind of the name of the game. And then I brought it back and set it all on a table, like labeled it, and that was it. And then we set all the stuff up, and I just remember we tore our studio,
Destroyed it.
It really did.
And I don't know whose idea was the fire tornado.
The fire nado was a specific ask. And that was one of the very few things that came from them. And they were like, we saw this thing on Mythbusters. It's a fire nado. And I was like, well, if anyone can create a fire nado, it's us.
It's us.
And we researched it, and it turns out the way to kind of to do it. I don't know if I'd do it the same today. was to
not.
get a tremendous amount of fans.
Yep.
So you had to have like 10, 15 fans, and you place them in a perfect circle, and you angle them so they're all blowing like that. And so ultimately they're blowing a big circle. And then you take like hairspray and you blow it into the tornado you've created.
Kerosene.
Or kerosene.
It was kerosene.
It was kerosene.
It's probably a little more dangerous.
Kerosene in we got squirt bottles, like cleaning squirt bottles.
Yes.
And then we lit it on fire.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because it actually would light on fire. It worked.
It worked.
I mean, I'll never forget it because it was just right over there. And I remember you were squirting it, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And I was on camera and I was like, more.
I know.
More.
I was like, no. like, okay. So for reference, our studio in that area is about maybe 18.
Yeah, about
18 feet high.
18 feet high.
We had probably a good 15-foot
tornado.
And
Good
I'm
thing
like,
we didn't have whatchamacallit, smoke alarms.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the place filled with smoke pretty quick.
It did.
It smelled bad for a week.
Yeah. So, but we got it done, and that was an accomplishment. And I just remember, like, once we got that shot, we reviewed it because we had to turn the camera to actually get the
I had to shoot it
scale up.
sideways to get like a vertical picture.
And to see, and on top of that, the fireballs that we created
We're so cool.
for intros. Like, I think we did an
It's
intro
used for the behind the scenes video.
And if you look at what we were really doing, it's him with the camera and me with a lighter and a spray bottle and going
Doing our best.
doing our best, but it created some awesome visuals that I'm super proud of, and I'm sure you guys are too.
I think one thing that stands out to me is the speakers with the paint.
Oh, that was awesome. And those were on my desk for a solid 2 years before they stopped working.
Yep, I think I saw one behind the white wall the other day. So
yeah, those were cool.
I think that and with those ones specifically, and we also did we do a drum kit?
Yeah, we did a drum kit with paint. We did one with paint, but then we also did it with dial dish soap because the dish soap, it was like it would kind of gel and it would like come off, but still keep shape. I mean, it was. Yeah. I mean, we were like High Tire said, we destroyed the studio.
Yeah.
We bought so many things that we just were like, whoa.
Yeah, we were just like using compressed air and literally shooting coffee beans, and then on top of that, we had really fine glitter.
Oh, yeah.
Which
glitter.
I mean,
poor decision.
still 5.5 years later, I'm still finding glitter. Seriously.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I think when it was all said and done, we probably created something like, I don't know, probably, edited 5 minutes, 8 minutes. They looped it. We probably actually captured hours worth of footage.
Oh, yeah.
But it was amazing. I remember it wasn't but, I don't know, like a month or two later when we were down in Dallas.
Yeah.
And we went over there.
And sure enough,
Walked in this glass building that has a huge fountain out front, and behind that glass wall, you could see it from the outside, was this 25, 30 foot tall screen, 50 foot wide, and it was all this psychotic footage that for everyone to enjoy. And you would just go, wow, what is that? Where did that come from? That is mind blowing. And little did anyone in Dallas know that entire thing was a bunch of crap from Home Depot, Lowe's, Hobby Lobby, shot in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So
that was a cool project.
Yeah, it was definitely a cool one. Well, I think that kind of concludes this episode. Talking about the problems we solve with slow-mo. Obviously, you can do all the Googling you want on slow motion. It is a really fun aspect of what we do. And even today, we still shoot in slow-mo, and we still got our macro lenses, and we still love to do it. So we appreciate you guys listening in or maybe watching us on video as well. We hope that you'll watch the next episode of Retrospec Films from the Archives. We'll see you guys next time.
Goodbye.
Peace.
See ya.